All right, hello everyone. So the purpose of this video is just to kind of talk a little bit more about StatKey and just have a video so that you could reference what we're doing in the future. And so to find StatKey, I am going to post a link to it in announcements, but you could also just Google like StatKey normal distribution. So we will use StatKey for other stuff, but for now we're just looking at the normal distribution and finding probabilities and percentiles with it. And so if you click that, you should get to a screen like this. So the link that I post should take you directly here as well. You could click this distribution. We will use these other three later in the semester, but for now just leave it at normal distribution. And you could kind of remember that in the SAT example on the bottom of page 5 of our note packet, what we wanted to do was find Anne's percentile, and she had scored 1300 on the SAT. And so what I'm going to do is come over here to edit parameters, and that's going to let us change the mean and change the standard deviation. And so in that example, the mean SAT score was 1100, the standard deviation was 200. You'll see the x-axis scale change to kind of match what you just did. And then in our graph on the bottom of page 5, we shaded the area to the left because we were finding a percentile. And so if I click this left tail, these two little buttons should appear. This one is going to tell you the area, and so that's 0.025. This one tells you the value on the x-axis. And so to find the exact percentile, I'm just going to change this bottom value so that the cutoff is 1300, which was what Anne had scored. After we do that, we see that the area is 0.841. And so if you want to fill out, let's see, we had guessed that the area would be 80, the 80th percentile, and Anne is actually the 84th percentile, 84.1. And so we were pretty close based on our drawing, but StatKey is going to let us get that exact value. We could do the same thing for Michelle, who had taken the ACT. And so the mean ACT score was 21 with a standard deviation of 6. And Michelle had scored a 19. And so we see Michelle's percentile is she's about the 37th percentile. We had guessed she was the 30th based on our drawings. We were pretty close, but again, StatKey is going to give this exact value. All right, so kind of similarly, moving on to page 6 of our note packet, we had made a couple of other guesses. And so the first one was with this baby weight example. So I'm going to go ahead and edit these parameters. And the mean baby weight was 7 with a standard deviation of 2. And the first question we wanted to know was, what's the probability that a woman gives birth to a baby that's more than 12 pounds? And so now instead of clicking left tail, I'm going to click right tail. And I'm going to change this value here to be 12. And so we get a probability of 0.0062. So we had guessed on our picture that it was 0.05, so I was very, very off on that, which is fine. The picture is just meant to be kind of a guess and an approximation, and StatKey will give us this exact probability. We also looked at what percent of newborns weigh less than 6.4 pounds. And so go ahead and pause the video for a sec and just see if you could find that exact percent. We had guessed that it was 45%, but that was just based on our picture. All right, and so we would just change this to be 6.4. We wanted a less than, not a greater than, so I'm going to change that back to a left tail. And by Jove, it changed that too, so I have to do the extra step of entering it again, and we find that the percent is 38%. Okay, and so where this kind of connects with z-scores, so remember that 38.2%, what we could also do is not edit the parameters at all, so change them back so that it has a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. Remember, we were calling this our z-distribution. And we could always just leave it like this, and instead of entering in like the raw baby weight, which was like 6.4, we could enter in the z-score and come up with the same exact conclusion. So I'm going to change this bottom thing. The z-score of that woman who gave birth to the 6.4 pound baby was negative 0.3. And you'll see, kind of just like magic, we get the same exact result. It's not really magic because all the z-score is doing is kind of recentering and rescaling, but this is often kind of an easier way to just leave the mean and standard deviation at 1 or at 0 and 1, and then constantly just be entering in z-scores. This is also more in line with what we're going to do later in the semester, so I'd recommend kind of practicing just using z-scores instead of always updating the mean and standard deviation to match a particular problem. Okay, cool. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any issues with StatKey, email me right away. It should, as it says at the bottom, perform well with most browsers. Probably not Internet. Oh, no, it says Internet Explorer, but that's a terrible browser. So if you have any issues, let me know. And yeah, hope you have a great afternoon.